Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the introduction on the depot. So this is where we start to get into the more complex stuff. I have two versions of the depot, the big spacious version and the compact version. They are functionally the same thing. The difference is really just the size, and the small one fits into the same square as the outposts. So if you prefer that, as a matter of course, you can use the smaller version. It is just a little bit more cramped. Things are a little bit easier to see on the larger version here, right? So what do we have? You have a left side. This side over here is responsible for the builder train. It's the side that you use to ferry resources to yourself or to the outpost that you're building currently. While on the right side, this is the station that supplies all your artillery and defense outpost maintenance trains. As you can see, we have the remotes here, top and bottom, for the builder train and for the outpost defense trains. When you use these stations, the first thing after building them you have to do is you have to add a global memory like this. The first time you build such a station, you need to add this global memory, otherwise your train dispatch does not work. Right, so this is only for the it's not for the resource trains, it's only for the builder and maintenance trains. But if you do not have this somewhere in your system will you will not actually be able to dispatch more than one train at a time. Right, so what happens here? You take this builder train. Let's have it go around. Actually, there is a dummy station down here. I will explain what it does later when I get to the outpost stations. So when a train comes first into the station, a recycle is engaged. You can see that by the blue lamps over here. And this will last until the train is completely empty. And you can see there's still all kinds of items in the train. And the inserters will simply slowly empty the train. Once that's done, we can start with the loading. And the unloading is necessary because I do not load my trains as a whole, I load them per wagon. But the station, and we are back to normal speed now. The station cannot read train contents per wagon. It can only read the contents of the entire train. But this is useless if you want to have your items in specific parts of the train. And you want to make sure that the balance is kept. So if I want 1000 rails in here and 1000 rails in here, this can only tell me that there are 2000 rails in total. It cannot tell me whether I've got 800 here and 200 here, or maybe the other way around. So to make sure that I can get the loading as I want it balanced, I have to first create a known state. And the only known state we can make is to basically empty the train. That's taken care of by the recycling function. There is currently a bit of a bug in the game where occasionally inserters simply get stuck. If you look on the right side, you can see that it wants to insert an item. Right? It says status waiting for space and destination. There is very clearly space here. In fact, if I you can see it fine. If I disable this and then re-enable it, suddenly everything works again. This is not due to the system. There is no bug in my circuitry. This is just an issue with the game at the moment. So by the time you use the system, you might no longer have to deal with this bug. This is in 0.18.27. If you're at a later version, the bug may have been fixed. And it's the same thing down here. There's space. It's just the inserters are for some reason not dropping it. There we go. We're finished now. We have everything that we want. So these lamps on the left side here are per wagon, and these up here tell me the status of the entire train. If I have a green here, I know that the entire train is ready to leave. And on the right side, these bars tell me how much space my loader takes up in the cargo wagon. Right, and I've designed these such that I have steps of 5 stacks. So this is 5 slots taken, 10, 15, 20 slots, 30, 35 slots. I'm sorry, 30 slots, 35 slots. And here we go with single steps, so 36, 37, 8, 9, and 40. This might be a little bit misleading. If you do not like it, you can adjust these to show that if you have half the lamps lit up, you have exactly 20 slots rather than the 30. Because in fact, this means that if half the lamps are lit up, your train is already 3/4 full, not just half full. Your wagon. Okay. How do I balance my load? So first of all, I send the loadout that I want to the train. It gets saved in this memory cell over here. It gets divided amongst these requester chests. They get the items. It is then loaded into a train. And I've set it up in such a way that the inserters hold the signal of the item that they are holding. It's not a pulse, it's a hold. And only when that signal disappears, that means that the inserters have really dropped off the item, right? They're not trying to put it in, they actually have put it in the train. Only then will the falling edge detector here give that information to another memory, which is this one over here, which will keep track of what's been put into the wagon. And on the other side, if there's too much that has been put in the wagon compared to what I want, it gets communicated to the unloaders, which will then remove the item. And they basically do the same thing, except they pulse a pickup. So once an item picks it up, that information gets inverted into the negative and is then basically subtracted from the memory that knows what's in the train or what's in the wagon. If you're wondering how I solved the issue with stack size control signal, right? If you are familiar enough with advanced unloaders, then you know the issue of getting not just the filter that you want them to take, but also the stack size. Because you cannot use an each here. There's no each. You actually have to somehow convert what you want them to do, how many you want them to pick up, into a different signal. And that's pretty complicated because you can send, let's say, 5 different signals with 5 different values. So how do you know which one is the right one for your control signal, right? And I've done that with, I've solved that issue with a max finder. So what happens is I send all the signals that need to be unloaded from the train to the max signal finder, and it simply creates an average, deletes everything below the average, and then does it again and again until it has finally found the highest value. And then all the signals with the similar value, with the same highest value, so let's say 100 belts and 100 rails, simply get sent through to the inserters, and they choose one of these they want to remove. I don't care if I need to, which one gets removed first. If I need to remove 100 rails and 100 belts, they can pick whichever one they want. And then I just go and keep track of what's in the wagon memory over here and convert that into a usable ready signal or not ready signal. Once the train is ready, the system sends one check mark to the train station, right? So the first check mark would be ready. The second check mark instead is provided using the remote, right? Like this. There we go. This is again a dummy station. This is essentially if no outpost is active. You don't want your trains to be no pathing in the middle of your train network, so I created a dummy station here where the trains can come back, and I can use that here for demonstration purposes. Quite useful in that sense too. All right, and exactly the same thing happens with the maintenance train. The only difference being that you don't have to tell the train how many of them are allowed to leave. It just is always on. I think I explained that earlier with the remotes, right? just as with the cargo capacity checker, this is essentially again the same thing. We have simply split up the cargo capacity checker. If you imagine, this is essentially the display, right? That's the bar of lights over here, and then we have the data bank of all the items in the game, sorted by stack size. We have that too, right here. Up here again for the top side, and we also have that in every station, right? And then we have moved the computing unit. We have moved that into each wagon individually, so that each wagon individually can say whether or not capacity fits. Okay. Right, how do I track whether or not a train has left? So every time a train leaves the station, it turns this rail signal over here. There's a rail signal here, it's a little bit difficult to see. It turns this red, right? And when it's red, it sends a check mark over here, which is negated, and then the negation means that when it's added to the global memory, it is actually subtracted from what you have in here. So if we test that for a moment, I want one train to move. Once it is finished loading, in this case it's just stuck again. Let's do it manually. You can hear the chime. That's this alarm over here. If it is annoying, you can turn it off. I quite like it because it tells me when I'm not near the depot that my train is coming. And you can see, here we go. It has been detracted. We're now at 0 check marks. And the lamps that were active here, right? We have 1 check mark until the train is going to leave. The lamps are active. That tells me that there are still trains that are going to leave the depot as soon as they finished loading. Right. So the recycling is a little bit slow, because what it does, instead of going per wagon what's in it, it actually uses the information from the station, what's in the entire train, and then has to use that information on every wagon at the same time, which means there are going to be wagons that have nothing to do because the item isn't in that wagon. That's just the recycling. There's nothing I can do about it. The second part with loading is much faster, because this is per wagon then, right? You can see that they are unloading different items here. Yeah, you want to make sure that your depot is near your mall, so that the bots, if you're requesting items, so that the bots can deliver them immediately. You can also use, I have added the ability to read out the entire memory of what you have sent to the train to load. Is also being read onto this green wire here, right, from this pole. And you can use that to say, for example, to send a signal to your mall of what items it should produce. Okay. Have we got anything else? The same is of course also true for the maintenance train over here. And I don't think there's anything else I need to mention about this setup. In the compact version, once again, you have your remote stop and bottom. You have your cargo capacity checker. The smaller version here, where this lamp only tells you whether or not the item will fit exactly, or not fit at all. The item, I mean the loadout. If you need to know details, you have to mouse over this pole, and in the on the right side of the screen, you can see with the I symbol, the information symbol, you can see how many stacks that is. Currently, we're exactly 40 stacks. If I delete that, obviously we have no I symbol, right? We're empty. And if I add too many items, you can see 80 stacks. That's a bit too much. We can't support that much. Right. The depots all have by default the loadout for the first step of for step 1 of the outposts loaded, because that's what you're going to use most often from this depot. Okay. Thank you for watching.